The Gospel of this day speaks of Lazarus and Dives, the rich man. It talks about a great gulf fixed between one part and the other. The word used in the Greek is in Hades. In Latin it goes into in inferno. There's a whole geography on the other side which is puzzling to man on this side. The nun who is alive and expiating for the other in purgatory asks where one nun is. Apparently she's in the grand purgatory, and there she gets no one's prayers. God is often obliged to go against his wishes, if one can use such an expression, at the death of many a nun, because he had called these souls to himself, them to serve him faithfully upon earth, and go immediately after death to heaven to glorify him. On the contrary, what often happens is that they spend a long time in purgatory, a much longer period than people of the world who haven't had so many graces. Then she goes on to explain, when I spoke to you of the grand purgatory and of the second purgatory, it was in order to make you understand. What I meant by that was that there are different degrees in purgatory. Thus I call grand purgatory the place in which are found those souls who are most guilty, where I remained for 2 years without being able to give any sign of my torments. And then the year in which you heard my complaints, you know that I was still there when I began to speak to you. In the second purgatory, which is still purgatory, albeit different from the first, one's suffering is still great, but smaller than in the first. Last of all, there is a third place, the purgatory of desire. There is no fire there. In it are the souls which have not had a sufficiently great desire for heaven, nor sufficient love for God. That's where I am at present. What is more, in these 3 purgatories there are many degrees. As the soul is progressively purified, it does not suffer the same torments. Everything is proportioned to the faults it has to expire. As for the degrees in purgatory, I can well speak of them, because I've passed through them. In the grand purgatory, there are different degrees. In the lowest and most painful, which is in fact a temporary hell, are those sinners who have committed enormous crimes during their lives and who have been taken by surprise in this state by death, a death which gave them barely enough time to recognize their own condition. They have been saved as by a miracle, often through the prayers of devout parents or others. In some cases, they were not even able to go to confession, and the world thought them lost. But the good Lord, whose mercy is infinite, gave them at the moment of death the contrition necessary for salvation, in view of one or several acts which they did during their lives. For these souls, purgatory is terrible. It is hell, with this exception that in hell God is cursed, whereas in purgatory he is blessed and thanked for having saved us. Then come the souls who, though they may not have committed great crimes like those in the first group, have been indifferent towards God. During their lives, they didn't fulfill their Easter duties, and having been converted likewise at the hour of death, often without being able to receive communion, they are in purgatory to make up for their prolonged indifference, suffering unheard of pains, abandoned without prayers, or, if prayers are offered on their behalf, unable to gain anything from them. Then finally, there are in this purgatory lukewarm religious of both sexes, oblivious of their duties, indifferent towards Jesus. Priests who, having failed to exercise their ministry with the due reverence due to sovereign majesty, did not cause God to be loved by the souls entrusted to them as they should have done. This was my decree. In the second purgatory are to be found the souls of those who die with the guilt of venial sins which were not expiated before death, or of mortal sins which have been forgiven, but for which divine justice has not received entire satisfaction. In this purgatory too there are different degrees, corresponding to the merits of each person. As the purgatory of consecrated souls or of people who have received more abundant graces is longer and more painful than that of ordinary folk. Last of all, there is the purgatory of desire, called forecourt. Very few people avoid it. To do so, one must have desired heaven and the vision of God ardently, and that is rare, rarer than people think, because a large number of people, even devoted ones, are afraid of God and don't desire heaven with sufficient ardour. This purgatory has its really painful martyrdom, like the others, deprivation of the sight of Jesus. How it aches.